Okay, the Senate will now be called to order. We'll begin, as always, with the land acknowledgement. And since this meeting is being held online, a singular land acknowledgement can't capture the richness of where we are, either in the US or outside of the country. But since ASG is a body under the University of San Diego, I would like to share the land acknowledgement that is used at USD. And I also invite today's participants to consider their own position with regard to where they find themselves. I want to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional and unceded territory of the Kumeyaw Nation. I want to pay respect to the citizens of the Kumeyaw Nation, both past and present, and their continuing relationship to their ancestral lands. The Clerk of Senate will now take roll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Okay, everyone, and happy Thursday. Okay, so AJ Armienta.
Here.
Awesome. Alana Del Torre.
Here.
Thank you. Alana Bledman.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Alexa Andrade.
Here.
Angelo Tharp.
Here.
Thank you. Benjamin Tebow.
Here.
Thank you. Brooke Powell.
Here.
Thank you. Catalina Carvajal.
Here.
Thank you. Cecilia Bayron. Sorry about
Barron. Here.
Bayron. Thank you. I need to practice on rolling my R's. Chidi Okaru. There you go.
Here.
Thank you. Daniela Benya.
Here.
Thank you. Okay. Elena Cruz.
Proxy.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Ezra Wheeler. Ezra Wheeler. Okay, not here currently. Maybe might be running a little late. Okay, Fantasy Bias.
Here.
Thank you. Harrison Tarbox.
Here.
Thank you. Jay Johnson.
I'm here.
Thank you. Lauren Fetis.
Here.
Thank you. Madeline Wu.
Here.
Thank you. Max Donahoe.
Here.
Thank you. Meg McWilliams. Meg McWilliams. Okay. I'll come back later. Mia Soto.
Here.
Thank you. Sabrina Mendoza.
Here.
Thank you. Sean Kenny. I know Sean.
Proxy.
Okay, thank you. And Tiana Faye.
Tiana Fee in here.
Tiana Faye. Okay. Thank you. Alrighty.
Was everyone's name called? Cool. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of today's agenda. Are there any motions? Alexa?
I move to approve today's agenda.
Second.
There is a motion on the floor having been seconded to approve today's agenda. Is there any further discussion? If not, please cast your votes. Motion passes. Today's agenda has been approved. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from October 15th. Are there any motions on the floor? Lauren?
I move to approve the minutes from last week's meeting.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor, have been seconded to approve last week's minutes. Is there any further discussion? If not, please cast your votes. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is a report from me. So 2 things, I'll start off with attendance. So initially we wanted to be doing the committees in good faith, just assuming that everybody will be going to it. But I've heard that sometimes everyone doesn't have the full attendance that they expect at their committee meetings. So I'm asking for the chairs to start taking attendance of the committee members. And from this point forward, if you miss more than 3 committee meetings, you will be put under review. And then on for the Senate Initiatives Fund. So all senators have this fund available to them to do anything initiative related that they would want to do. For example, last year, one senator requested funds to provide the Wellness Center with menstrual cups. So that was something that they had to present because it was over $1,500 and each be presented to Senate. So there's $10,000 available to senators this semester, and I can send the link to the form in the chat after the report right now. But so funding request about $14,999 and under will be decided by the Senate lead team. So me, the Speaker Pro Tem, the clerk, and then also the finance chair. And then if it's over 1,500, then it needs to be presented and voted on by the Senate body. And that's it for my updates. So we can move on to reports from committee chairs. Academics chair, would you like to go first?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. We chatted about a few things at our last committee meeting. So firstly, I'm going to start off with, we had the pleasure of speaking with Chris Markham and Catherine Paolillo. Currently, one of the initiatives is trying to understand the reasoning and perhaps if there is a better alternative to the current system set up for library fees. Next, we chatted about ASG academic grants, and just a final reminder that academic grant applications are going to be due next Monday. I dropped a link in the chat, so if anybody, final reminder to your constituents should they be interested. And lastly, or rather 2 more things. We had the pleasure of speaking with Maria Lee, the transfer chair for the TLC program. And one of the initiatives we wanted to work on was understanding if there's a better way to work on the system for transfer student policies and registration. And then finally, one of our committee members brought up the idea of perhaps creating vouchers for textbooks and parking permits for future semesters. And that's all we have for today.
Thank you. Student orgs chair.
Hi, everyone. So we have 3 re-registering and 1 new org seeking approval today, and Jay will be presenting those later. And the student org committee, well, I met with some of the justices. So we're planning on creating, as I have previously mentioned, student org committee bylaws. We're hoping to have a draft of it by the end of this semester. That's the goal. We'll see. But I know we're going to meet again with some of the justices in 2 weeks to see where we are.
Thank you. Student Life Chair.
Thank you. Yes, I will be in conversation with the tram services over the coming weeks to sort of figure out the possibility of doing some sort of Torero San Diego adventures for next semester following safety guidelines, just to sort of get some of the students who are on campus and in San Diego, get them sort of out of campus, experience San Diego in an outside and COVID safe environment. So if there are any senators who would be interested in working with me on that sort of thing, please let me know.
Thank you. Would anyone on the IDE committee like to share any updates? If not, that's okay. Okay, no problem. Oh, sorry.
Actually, yeah. So one update, last week's meeting was pretty brief, but we just went over our SMART goals and what we wanted and what some of our plans and some of our ideas that we wanted to do for IDE committee. So one of them that I had informed the committee group was creating a possible IDE committee podcast where students, essentially the podcast would help to amplify marginalized student voices. And we would bring a discussion to the table of things and events that are taking place or students that have experienced. And we were thinking, we kind of brainstormed and we thought it'd be best to maybe do with the backing of ASG, to do like an IG live, just to kind of make it fun and interactive for like a one-on-one interview with students. So if anybody is interested in helping me take on this project, I'm going to drop my email in the chat and let me know. It's going to be in the works for the first semester because there's a lot to structure and lay out, but hopefully get it probably launching as when we're coming back to school, and then just hitting the ground running with it. And I'm excited. It's going to be really fun. And yeah, so let me drop that.
Thank you. Athletics coordinator.
Hello, everyone. So last week I mentioned that I was working on a BIPOC student athlete My Story Night. I'm sending a link to an interest form for that in the chat. So if you know any BIPOC student athletes that you think might be interested in sharing their story with our community, please let me know or forward them that form as well. I'm working with the Black Student Athlete Forum right now to get their involvement as well. Additionally, I'm starting to investigate athletic recruiting policies on campus to increase diversity and inclusion on our campus. So if anybody's interested in helping with that, also please let me know. And finally, I've been meeting with our athletics marketing department to work on furthered student engagement for our women's and men's basketball scrimmages that are coming up. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Health and Wellness coordinator.
Yes, the Student Wellness Center is recognizing National Collegiate Alcohol Awareness Week starting Monday, October 25th through the 31st. And it has a strong tie to making Halloween as safe as possible and maintaining coronavirus prevention messaging with the whole theme of Our Actions Matter. I'll link to the USD webpage for more information related to the campaign. And it also has like a sign up, like you can sign the student pledge that comes with the week. And then participants will be entered for a $25 gift card. And there is the link. So y'all should share that. And it's the wrong link. I'll fix that.
Thank you. Sustainability coordinator.
Hello, everybody. So, three things are going on right now. I am reaching out to other constituents, such as the Sustainability Club, to gather support and information on the sustainability grant and keeping the sustainability grant. And then on Tuesday next week, I am meeting with the marketing director of athletics to film a TikTok in support of the Aussie boxes. That is going to be exciting. And then finally, I'm putting together a presentation that I will share next week in Senate on adopting sustainable purchasing guidelines. So basically, I'm hoping that ASG will adopt these guidelines and we can set a nice example for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job, everybody. Moving on to reports from ASG Executive Board.
Awesome, thank you. So not too many updates for me. Met with the Strategic Steering Committee. I am a member at large. So right here, I strongly encourage everyone to look at these links. They lay out the goals that are being pursued by the Strategic Steering Committee, as well as the funding for each of these goals, etc. So I highly encourage everyone to check those links out. And then second, just to kind of reiterate what Lauren said, we met with Katie Silla. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Lauren, for that, for fixing that typo. But we had a really good talk. She's really pursuing some great things with regards to really changing the way we think about recruiting and making sure we have a more diverse group of athletes on our campus. So it's really, really awesome stuff. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, thank you, Chidi. So I just have two quick updates, and for one of them, I'm going to share my screen. So the first one is going to be about the University Senate's ad hoc committee on the undergraduate calendar for the spring semester. So the University Senate, they met, and I just want to show you all this document. This is the timeline of how they discuss the possible scenarios for the spring semester. And if you all wanted to just see who are the key players, here is the total list of faculty that were on this committee. So as you can see, there is a wide representation from different disciplines that were involved in the discerning process. So they came up with 5 different scenarios for the spring semester. Right off the bat, 3 of those scenarios were deemed unfeasible. And those are scenarios 3, 4, and 5 right here. Late start, pushing the spring back on the calendar and going remote afterwards, or splitting the semester into 2 terms. So those are all considered, but because of logistical difficulties, financial issues, etc., they decided that those were not feasible. The 2 main scenarios was scenario 1, no change. So classes starting January 25th, ending May 19th as planned, and having the spring break as usual. Scenario 2 that was proposed was an early end. So the same start date on January 25th, but either limiting or getting rid of spring break altogether and ending a week earlier. So at last Faculty Senate, they debated between scenario 1 and scenario 2 pretty heavily. However, myself and several faculty made a strong advocacy for scenario 1, just due to the severe difficulties that we are seeing with the current fall semester and with it being compressed with no break. One of the primary concerns that they had was that if students have a break any longer than 3 days, they would be more likely to travel. Well, to be honest, students are traveling anyway. It doesn't matter if it's a whole week or if it's a weekend, or with the remote nature being a weekday. So inevitably, the University Senate had an overwhelming majority voting for scenario 1, no change. And then they will then take these notes over to administration. So Dr. Harris, the Office of the Vice President, and the Provost, et cetera. And then they will sort of take that feedback and make a decision. And Chidi, you can go back to sharing your screen. Thank you. So the last portion has to do with the pass-fail option eligibility. I'm sure you all saw there is the petition going across. So ASG exec, we met with the undergraduates who composed the petition, and since this nature was a time-sensitive scenario, ASG exec composed a letter draft directly to the University Senate and the Office of the Provost on behalf of undergraduate students that summarize the student rationale for implementing pass-fail this semester and also in the spring, because COVID-19 isn't going anywhere. So we wanted to be proactive in recognizing its need for the entire academic year. The reason why ASG exec made that decision instead of bringing it over to this Senate body was precisely because it is a time-sensitive manner. And by the time a resolution was drafted and it were to reach the University Senate's biweekly meetings, we'd already be wrapping up and close to the end of the semester. So that's the sole reason why we sort of took the lead on that. We didn't want to, insubordinate anyone or jump over any boundaries. So there's that. And that was sent this morning to the Office of the Provost as well as the Speaker of University Senate. That's all for me.
Hi everyone. So this Tuesday we had our wellness workshop and it was a huge success. Very excited about that. Next Wednesday, TBB is having our event that we are collaborating with a national organization called Trill or Not Trill. And this event is dedicated specifically to 5 ways to understand privilege, powers, and talents to support the Black Lives Matter movement. And then in addition, I know that there will also be a spoken word occasion and then various like other forms of entertainment, which should be really interesting. And I've attached the link to register there, and then I'll send it right there too. And then also starting for next week, so Monday through Friday, we are having after our event with Trill or Not Trill, we have one final event that we're terming Wonderfest. And so Wonderfest is, as y'all know, we typically do our annual Winter Wonderland, but it doesn't make sense to do Winter Wonderland right now. So we decided to like mix like what Winter Wonderland and Fall Festival is, and then combine it to be Wonderfest. And the first part of that is to mail out finals care packages. So students all of next week will be able to sign up with the other link that I sent in the chat. And they will get a free customized like pair of sweatpants and then a hot chocolate if you wanted to also, because we will also be advertising the tree lighting ceremony, which will be happening on December 1st. And so just marketing that out to everyone. First 300 students who get to sign up will get a free pair of sweatpants mailed to them, and it'll arrive. Ideally, it should be arriving right before finals start, so you can be all nice and comfy for finals. And that is everything for me.
I don't have too many updates this week. In fact, there's nothing really new happening. I feel like I've told you everything that's going on, and Alana mentioned with the student org bylaws that we're working on. So I really just wanted to give you a reminder that every other week, the judicial branch does like checks on the other branches and whatnot. And so, of course, we can't know everything that happens in ASG. You guys do a lot of work that we just cannot know all of it. But if there's something that you think maybe goes against our bylaws, our constitution, or something that you think the judicial branch should take a look at, you can just email me at my like ASG email, asgchiefjustice@sandiego.edu, and then we can look into it. So yeah, that's all I really have.
Oh, and our finance chair couldn't be here today, but he told me to relay the information that whatever is on the screen is what he had to update us with. He said that there weren't many updates, but what you see there is what he had to update us with.
Alrighty, happy Thursday, everyone. So first and foremost, weekly updates video. If you have any clips for content pertaining to the week of November 2nd, please email that to jzotto@sandiego.edu. And then if your committee has anything coming up, just be sure to send marketing content 2 weeks in advance to the following members and to the following senators. Again, feel free to take a picture or a screenshot of this so you know who your representative is. And lastly, we're doing website updates. So I'm going to send this form again in the chat. If you could just take like 2 to 10 seconds to fill it out. It's only 2 questions. It's just major, or it's name, major, and or minors. And even if you're undeclared, we ask you to fill that out so we can put it on the website. And lastly, I sent an email to the committee chairs and coordinators in regards to the website description blurb that is not there yet, and we're requesting that. So if you could send those to me also to jzoto@sandiego.edu as soon as possible, that would be greatly appreciated. And that's all I have from my end.
Awesome. And for me, so Calendly is currently being used by the exec branch to schedule meetings with many constituents and things of that nature. And it's my understanding this works pretty well. It's a lot more efficient than, well, I guess, I mean, it's really the most efficient way to hold office hours in this type of virtual environment. And so knowing this, I am requesting funding for this to be implemented for senators and the TBB chairs as well. Not this semester because the semester is obviously ending pretty soon, but for the spring semester. So I'm not sure when, but soon expect an email kind of giving you some direction on how to set this up because it's not always an easy process to know how to set these things up. So just be on the lookout for an email soon. And then also be on the lookout for a poll because I still would like to have this little ASG virtual game night. For those of you who were at the end of the year banquet last year, it's going to be kind of, well, not similar because we're not giving out awards, but the sort of games that we play may be a little bit similar. Although I have been doing extensive research into different sort of games. And so I think it'd be really fun. And I have some really cool ideas on how to, have some fun and engaging games for all of us to play, which would make it a little bit competitive, but still fun. So just be on the lookout for a poll. The poll will just be, it'll just have like these different time, like I guess like a schedules for when we can have something like this, because I know that our finals are coming up pretty soon and our schedules are going to be really busy. So yeah, just be on the lookout for that poll pretty soon. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Before we get into new business, I'm just gonna send the form for Senate Initiatives Fund requests. So you can take a look at that at your earliest convenience. And first item under new business is a presentation from Public Safety Chief Miyoshira. And so I don't know if you would like to say anything beforehand or you'd rather jump right into questions, but the floor is yours.
I'll go ahead and just jump into questions.
Does anyone have any questions about how PSAFE is dealing with students on campus, anything like that? Fantasy?
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, could we get an as most detailed as possible update on the Right@USD accounts that circulated in late summer and beginning of the semester?
Sure. We went ahead and we documented it into a report, contacted everybody that had received that or had been a part of that communication email. Unfortunately, we weren't able to track where it originated from. It didn't look like it came from from campus because when we went back into our IT and had them try to trace it, we couldn't verify that it originated from campus. And it's really hard on those third-party sites to get information from them. So all they did was block that account, but it didn't. They weren't able to provide us any information as to who set it up or any other, information that we could use in our investigation.
Alana Budman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Hello, Chief. I was wondering, I know that the IDE committee has been in contact with you about restarting the Public Safety Advisory Board. And I know that in your response, you said that something like that is already exists or that it continued. I just have no idea about the continuation of that board, and I would just love to hear some updates.
Sure. We have a public safety advisory group, and it basically consists of students from across campus. This semester, we didn't implement it only because we don't have enough people that were able to join the group. There's a few people I believe that were interested from ASG, and that'd be great, but we want to get as many people from a cross section of campus that we can. So we were going to revisit it probably next semester when we have more people here. But anytime there's a question that comes up or anything else, feel free just to come, and talk to me, and we can set something up so that we can meet if there's something pressing. And I heard somebody earlier talk about trams and the possibility of going off campus and doing some things in a safe COVID-free way. And again, that's something that is under public safety. So that would be something they can contact me for and we can look at. And I think it'd be great to, offer some things, because I know it gets boring here after you're here stuck on campus and, not socializing. So if we can do something that we can set up that's going to be safe, I'm all for that. And I don't want to digress, but just going back to the tram thing, we do have limited capacity on that because we do distance it. So there's only going to be about 12 people per tram shuttle that's able to, we're able to load passengers onto.
Chidi?
I just had a question about the advisory board. How and to which organizations were interest forms or informational flyers distributed, and how long or how early in advance were they sent out to students that were in?
We usually send it out right when the semester starts. And what we try to target is different groups on campus so that we have a real diverse section. So it will go to ASG, it will go to our, the Rainbow Coalition, I believe. It will go to students from the student athletes from the athletics program, and as much diverse as we can. Those are the ones that my assistant usually sends out emails to try to get people to sign up for.
Fantasy?
Thank you. So I have two questions and they kind of circle back to the answers. So one is that I'm aware that at the beginning, when I don't think that PSAFE was involved or USD was involved as much, but students did find that the email that was associated with the White@USD account, at least one of them did have a san diego.edu email, and it started with an S and it had a bunch of different asterisks. I don't know if some folks still have a screenshot of that, but you're able to see the email that it was created with. So I'm just kind of I guess, concerned with that. And I don't what's the next steps? Was it sent to locally to San Diego police? It doesn't seem it kind of seems like it's just we're just letting it go, which is not okay, I don't think. And second, along with another senator's question, was the interest forms distributed this semester, or are you talking about it usually is distributed to all of these orgs, or was it distributed to all of them? Because I didn't get anything about that interest.
Yeah, no, it wasn't distributed this semester because we weren't sure how many people were going to be coming back to campus. Everything kind of got, pushed forward as far as people returning to campus. So that wasn't this semester. And as far as that, going back to the White@USD, that email address that was on there, it did have an S and then had an edu at the end, but we don't know for sure that that's san diego.edu. There's a lot of other universities that can also have that same S with the edu at the end. So it wasn't specific. It didn't specifically say San Diego. And according to our IT people that looked it up, we ran the different names that were associated with there was a partial name, I believe, and then the S at edu, and we couldn't come up with anybody that lined up with that email address as a USD person. So as far as San Diego PD, they won't take that type of report because it has to be, in order for San Diego PD to do any type of report, it has to be a hate crime. And the definition of hate crime is you have to have a criminal act and you have to have some type of bias involved, whether it's race, religion, sexual orientation. So it didn't meet the criteria of a hate crime under their definition.
Angelo?
So I was just wondering, because when the provost spoke with us, there was something about the FBI being involved. Was that not the case? From what I heard, from what I understood you say, that wasn't part of it.
Well, what happens is we turn it over to everybody. So we give everybody the opportunity to look at it. There's actually a hate crime task force in San Diego County that's run out of the district attorney's office. So whenever we receive information like that, we try to give it to as many people as we can. And when we're trying to track the address, we used all the resources we could to verify if this was a USD student or not. And again, with the limited name we had on there and the S at EDU, there wasn't enough information to determine that it was a USD student with that under that criteria. So a lot of different eyes looked at it, but again, it didn't meet that threshold of an actual hate crime. And it's real hard with social media because those are things that people post on there, and you know there's an obligation from them as well to go ahead and shut those type of hate sites down. And so what we did is we did contact the social media account and made sure that you know they knew that this was an act of intolerance, and they did go ahead and pull that account down.
Alana Budman.
Thank you. Chief, I do appreciate all the steps that have been taken. I do think that, again, one of the main things that arose from the Public Safety Board, the advisory committee, one of the reasons why it was started, I think, is because of the sheer lack of connectivity between students and public safety. I think there's a disconnect between what the students know about policies and procedures and what public safety can and cannot share. So I remember that after the advisory board started, I remember receiving a lot more alerts, very quick responses on incidents that were happening on campus. So I think one of the easiest ways to alleviate these situations is when there's a large campus-wide discussion about something that happens. I think it's nice for the students to know that you all know and are taking steps to fix whatever's happening. So even if in the midst of your investigation it was inconclusive, I can totally understand that. It's very easy to hide behind social media. But I think us not knowing that anything was done or that steps were taken, very serious steps taking, I think if the student body knew that, one, that you all knew that this occurred, that two, you were going to do something about it, and three, sort of some of the steps that you all took to ensure the safety and well-being of the students on campus. And I know sometimes it's hard to understand the gravity of certain situations socially with students, but that Why at USD page had a very big social impact on the campus climate. And I think without that two-way bridge between students and public safety, the message may not get across that we need the extra support from you all, that we need the extra information. And I know that sometimes it can get tricky. I know, of course, because I was one of the founders of the board, that was our reason. Just what's the rules? So I am a little bit more privy to what information you can and can't share. And I understand that you have your own policies. But I think the biggest thing is just thinking that no one cares and thinking that no one is doing anything about it. So if we can sort of build back that trust that we were really starting to build, that transparency that I think we all would benefit from.
Sure, and I'm not opposed to opening it up sooner. I mean, if it's something that everybody's wants to do, I can probably use some folks from ASG and then also get some input from any other groups that are on campus, and we could, do it before next semester. It's just it's almost November here, so we're kind of winding down.
Lauren?
I can say that I know that there would be folks from the athletics department who would be interested in participating in this task force.
Okay. Well, great. Let me do this. I'll send out next week. I'll send out some invites and see how many people we can get. And if we can get a good number of people that are willing to join in, it's not a very large commitment. Some people were on it, as they just mentioned, last year. And we usually meet probably just maybe once or twice, probably like once a month would be the maximum. And it's only for a few minutes just to go over things that students need to address with public safety. And again, it's been a great program. We've had it now for about 3 years. So we've always had really good feedback on it. So something that I want to continue for sure.
Is there anyone interested in volunteering for this group? If you would like to volunteer, you can send your email in the chat so that Chief Miyashiro could write those names down. Everyone, please feel free to continue sending your emails in the chat if you're interested. Lauren?
Can I ask how many people you would consider a substantial amount to start this semester?
I would like to get 10.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Annecy?
Thank you. So yeah, I'm wanting to go back to the White at USD. So I can try to maybe find this, and maybe since this committee is starting, then y'all can talk more about it. But it definitely did say at sandiego.edu. I don't know which account maybe y'all were looking into, and I believe that there was 2 accounts that were made, but there was one that specifically said this *@sandiego.edu. I understand that other emails have .edu, but that's not something that's like private information. You don't really, like, students found that out. They just kind of like looked up on social media. So I'm sure that this committee, with the help of students and knowing a lot about technology, that will help. But it did explicitly say at sandiego.edu. And I just want to also, I guess, now that since we have you here, just talk about the other hate crimes that have happened on campus where there's not really, I guess, much transparency. So the hate crime that happened last year in Valley A, that was, that happened in that area. And if I'm sure you're aware of it. And also the hate crime that happened in January over this past intercession or last intercession with the white supremacy / Nazi stickers around campus. Are there any updates, concrete updates with how those got handled, or if you did find people who did those things?
Yeah, as far as the stickers on campus, they do sticker campaigns. They call them campaigns, and they do it rather frequently. And on those individuals, they were people from off campus. We had them on cameras. We saw them, and they were going around, and they were putting stickers on. And I had contacted UCSD as well as SDSU, and they had the similar. They had the same ones at SDSU, where somebody did the same types of things. So we stay in communication with them so that in case they were able to find somebody or we were able to find somebody, we could follow up with each other to verify if this is the same person. We could charge them with multiple offenses. But on that particular one, no, we didn't identify who the person was, other than we do have video surveillance of them coming on campus, and they had backpacks and they look like students from afar, but we noticed that they had driven, parked kind of down the street, walked onto campus, and then started doing the stickers. And that was early in the morning when that occurred. And some of the incidents that it's not a matter of public safety not wanting to be transparent, because I think it's always great to know what's going on, because that's how you protect yourself and that's how you know what is actually happening on your campus. But sometimes we're limited to what we can release as far as information because of victims' rights and things. So the people that served on the committee last year, we kind of explained that so they had an understanding. There's what's called a clearing notification that public safety puts out anytime there's a threat to campus. And in that information, it's real vague, and we're not allowed to discuss anything as to who the victim is. And again, a lot of this is confidential information we share with law enforcement and that they share with us. We can't release, but we can give you general terms as to what happened and what took place. And that's what we usually put out. Sometimes the university chooses, after we put out our information, which again is real brief and vague, to put out more information. And that comes from the direction of university administration if they want to do that. But from public safety, we do have that fine line where we have to respect victims' rights. We are limited to what we can put out.
Ari?
Hi, thank you for being here and telling us and providing us this information. So just in regards to what a previous senator had brought up, were you able to directly get in contact with Instagram? Because I know now, since the company has been bought by Facebook, the policies are completely different. And in terms of accessing and being able to access that information, especially people's accounts, and when it comes to, I believe when it comes to law enforcement, you're able to obtain that information through the third party, especially Instagram now. Just because Facebook had many other instances similar to this one. So, and especially if the student set up this white at USD with an at sandiego.edu email, I'm sure that information would be somewhat obtainable or something like that. So just out of curiosity. Thank you.
Yeah, and again, we did contact Instagram and it was more in the sense of requesting that they remove that site. As far as them releasing information to us, there's only two ways that they're going to do it. One is you have to be law enforcement and you have to be able to prove that it's a crime that took place. If somebody does a threat or anything else that would constitute a crime, then they'll go ahead and release that information. The second way is by subpoena. And in order to have a subpoena, again, you're going to have the elements of some type of crime or some reason why you're going to do something like that and need the information. So we weren't able to establish that. So for that reason, we weren't able to get anything more than what we have from our own IT department.
Chidi?
Yeah, so this is kind of going back, but in regards to off-campus people coming onto campus and putting up the stickers, from my understanding, there is like a gate before you're able to get onto campus, at least from coming onto Linda Vista. So I guess kind of what steps are you taking to make sure like people that are coming on campus that aren't students or like related to anything academic related, like are you going to be like checking people who come in, or like I guess what's the process behind it, and like what's the purpose of someone being at the gate at all times if like things can happen like this?
Well, that's a good question. And what we have now that we didn't have several months back is we just upgraded our camera systems at the gates. So if you notice, when you come on campus, whether you enter at the Vistas, you enter Main or you enter West Campus, there are cameras there that are license plate readers, LPRs. And we have that tied in with the little cars that you see on campus that are the parking vehicles that also have LPRs on them. So what that does is that records everybody's license plate that enters campus. So we know if it's a student, faculty, or staff member. If it's a non-student faculty or staff member that enters campus, we have that information, the type of vehicle and the color, and all that information is used so that we can go back and find out, who it was during this time period that may have come on campus. So we didn't have that last year. We were very limited on what we could do. We could record cars coming in, but we weren't able to identify exactly the license plate number and what type of vehicle it was. But that's been cleared up with our new system and our new cameras. And then the other thing it does is it allows us, if we're looking for a car that's on campus, even if they return, if they were here one day and then they're back on campus, if we enter that vehicle into our system, all the parking cars that drive around, that drive through the parking lots, if they spot that car, we know that person is back on campus. And if they're not supposed to be here, we can, locate them through the camera system and make sure that we take them off campus.
Alana Bunman, did you have your hand raised?
No, thank you. I took it off.
Brooke?
Hi. So what I wanted to address was actually a bit of a different issue, but I was in a club meeting a little while ago, and a public safety page through the University of San Diego website was brought to my attention. And it's the sexual assault prevention information page specifically. And what people were bringing up to me was that the language of this page was somewhat victim blaming and a little bit problematic. And they were encouraging me to ask about this and to inquire into the language in this. And so I just wanted to ask you if anyone had brought this to your attention, and if this was something that you were addressing.
They did actually, and I believe it's already been addressed. I don't have my screen up, I can look, but I'm pretty sure we have made the adjustments and changes. And a lot of that information from all the page sites have been on there a pretty long time and haven't been updated in a while. So we updated last year, we updated our hate crime and hate crime processes, acts of intolerance, and tried to find that better. And we did the same thing with our sexual assault page, and that should be updated now.
Catalina?
Something along those lines a little bit is that when you go to report, it's either, I think it's like when you're going to report an act of intolerance or a hate crime online through the form, there are some links around there that are broken on the Title IX site and stuff like that. Is that something that I can send to you and like you can fix it, or is that something else?
No, if you send it to me, I'll look at it. If it's within the public safety website, I will update it and make sure it's fixed. If it's Title IX, that's a different department, and it has to be fixed on their end. But I can update anything on the public safety website.
Okay, thank you.
Brooke?
So I actually pulled up the page, and some of the language that what people were reading to me, I am seeing is still a little bit there. Things such as avoiding attending or staying late at parties where men greatly outnumber women, do not give mixed messages, alcohol and drug consumption increase your vulnerability. So what people had brought up to me and what I find with this language is that it's addressing victims rather than addressing rapists or addressing statistics about campus sexual assault that are really important. So I just think there are some things that could be better clarified or better addressed on this page.
Okay. If you can, email me the specifics and then I'll look into it and we'll make some more adjustments to it. I'm just trying to pull it up now, so I'll have it up and I'll look at it as well. But I know we did make a lot of different updates on that page.
Thank you.
Lauren?
I have a question about the anonymous COVID violation form that is available. I've heard mixed things. Who exactly receives the anonymous tips that go into that? I don't really know what to call it, like tip line, I guess.
It actually goes two places. One, we get a copy of it, and every tip that comes in, we do a report on so that Conduct has it. And then Conduct also receives a copy of that, the anonymous tip line for COVID. Now there's two different anonymous lines. One is to report an incident. I just split those up because we only had one in the beginning, and I wanted to make sure we still had our our general one. So the second tip line just goes to public safety. But as far as any COVID type reporting, that's on the COVID anonymous report form, and that's public safety as well as conduct.
Lauren?
And what is the follow up with that? Like when public safety receives one of those tips, what happens?
What happens is we document it, and we can't just, it's not something where it will go to conduct uninvestigated. So we have to make sure that we can look into it and find out what happens. Sometimes people leave contact information for us so that we can follow up, and that's the best way to do it, because that way we can make sure what they're observing is actually what's taking place. The other thing that happens is when there's report of a party, if it's in the general area, we have staff that's assigned to go out, and we actually will take pictures, and that way we can verify that a person was having a party and that there were people walking in the area without masks. Again, it's not something that we're using for, I would say, I mean, there could be discipline behind it, but it's mostly bringing it to the attention of people. If it could be a first time that somebody had to get together, and it's more of a warning type thing, but it's something that's important because we want to know the people that are on campus obviously are here and they're doing their part to be safe. We want to make sure that anybody that's having activity outside of campus is also doing the same thing, because we don't want to have our people, leaving campus, our students, and then going somewhere that's unsafe and getting COVID and coming back and affecting anyone. So it's an important piece, I think, for the campus community.
We've reached our allotted time for this agenda item. If anyone would like to make a motion to extend the time, they should do that now.
Fantasy?
I move to extend the time for this discussion by 10 minutes.
Second.
There was a motion on the floor, having been seconded, to extend the allotted time period by 10 minutes. Is there any further discussion? If not, please cast your votes. Motion passes. Fantasy, I had you up next on stack.
Thank you. I was just wanting to ask specifically about training from either PSAFE or any kind of, I guess, official in that sense. What kind of training have officers undergone, or like have they done with respect to bias and de-escalation?
Well, we've actually had, and I have a list, I don't have it up on my screen right now, but we do have a list of different types of training we've gone through for not only bias, implicit bias, but various diversity training programs that we go through. Some of it is with the San Diego Police Department, because we're required every 2 years, officers have to have what we call AOT, Advanced Officer Training, and we do that with San Diego PD. And every year, that's part of the San Diego PD curriculum, is to have some type of diversity training, and that's for their officers as well as ours. In addition to that, we do the Harvard, there's a Harvard study program that has, it's basically on implicit bias, and it's I think it's about 100 questions long, and it will, once you answer those questions, it pretty much tells you your biases, and it's just kind of a self-review. And then as far as the other question you asked about de-escalation, that's something that we just implemented this year. We have a whole new procedure about not only de-escalation, but also what we call, it's our de-escalation and also disengagement. And what that does is we're always going to try first to defuse things. We've never been heavy-handed here. We're here as a support services for students, and that's not our role. But again, we're sensitive to what's happening nationwide with law enforcement, and we want to make sure that our officers are sensitive to that also. So a lot of our training that we did this year, that we just got done doing this past summer, had to do with de-escalation and also disengagement. And what that consists of is, disengagement is going to be if an officer's talking with a student and things aren't going right because students having a bad day or something, or the officers, not feeling well. We're just going to document it and write a report versus sitting there. And we don't want to get into a lecture, or we don't want to get into something where we're being accusatory. So we're kind of taking a different look at how we do things. And that was part of the training that we did this summer.
Lauren?
If Fantasy has a continued question with if the previous senator has a question about what was just addressed, I'd like for them to be able to speak.
Fantasy?
Yes, thank you so much, previous senators. Okay, so I was just gonna say, if we could get a list of the trainings that y'all take, this is not only for transparency, but it would also be for potentially like implementing the trainings that y'all do to other campus partners or student organizations. And then I guess with that, would public safety as a department be open to facilitating those trainings across campus, or is that not, do you not see that fit?
I don't know if that's our fit to train, but I think it's a good idea to see what resources are available, because we do have a list, and I provided it to, I was on the University Climate Task Force, Campus Climate Community Task Force. And in there, that was part of our recommendations, was to pool all the different resources for any type of diversity training on campus, whether it's public safety or other departments, whatever they were having, so we can have a list and see what's the best training, so that we can kind of promote those training activities. And that was provided. And I do have a list, so if I get everybody's email, I can email that to you as well.
Ari?
Thank you. And then also another question I'd like to ask is, out of curiosity, how many times throughout the semester are you having these trainings? Is it just prior to before the semester, and then once, and then you do it prior again the following semester, or is it monthly? Thank you.
Yeah, we have training twice a year, and that's in-house University of San Diego training. And that training consists of anything that we need to address, and that comes from within our department, and that's during the summer and that's during the fall. So those are the times when the students aren't here, is the time that we have time to do our training. In addition to that training, we have requirement training under our basically post guidelines, which is every 2 years we have to have 24 hours of training. And that's through San Diego PD, or that's through additional post regulatory courses that we have to take.
Lauren?
Back to the COVID tip line. Sorry to backtrack. I appreciate that you don't want somebody to have a first, encounter, and they get a warning, and that's fine. But I know for a fact that there are people who are having large gatherings night after night, who have not been cited for this, nothing has been done. And I think that it is important for those of us who would like to come back in the spring, who currently cannot because we are at risk, that these people should be held accountable for their actions. So I was wondering, is there any procedure for if somebody gets multiple tips put in against them? Not against them. That wasn't worded right.
Yeah,
But
I mean, the first one, again, that's kind of the warning that they get. If it's a continual thing, as long as people are reporting it and they keep seeing the same name and conduct, there's going to come a point where it's going to be more than just a warning. They're going to take action on it. So I think it's important that we keep the tip line going. We get comments on there too from people saying, oh, this is a snitch line. And, some students don't really agree with it. But again, I think it's a necessary thing that we have to have right now, especially in these times. And if we get the information on there, we can document it, we can show that this is actually taking place, there will be something more substantial than just a warning.
Lauren?
Sorry, that's my last comment. Not necessarily to you, Chief, but is it possible that we could have somebody from the conduct office come and speak to us about what it would look like for somebody who has multiple citations and what the process is?
Yeah, I'm sure I can get somebody to come and talk.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions for Chief Miyashiro? If not, then thank you so much for your time today, Chief.
Sure. I just have one more thing. It's Miyashiro. The O and the A are mixed up.
Sorry.
That's okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a presentation from Fantasy Bias for the proposal of the Universal Design Ad Hoc Committee.
Hi, everyone. Happy Friday Eve. I'm excited to present this to y'all. Should I share my screen or am I sharing this doc with someone?
You can share your screen.
Okay. Alrighty, so I have never done this before, so it's kind of just like this is like my draft, so please bear with me. But this has been a passion of mine probably since I came to campus, is to have some sort of accessibility and disability justice focus on campus. So I'm coming to y'all as a senator, as like a student, as a representative for Alliance of Disability Advocates, but I think this benefits any and all students, grad students, staff, faculty, everyone who attends our university, whether or is involved in the university, whether it's online or in person. So I just kind of have like a who, what, when, where, why laid out here, and I will. Oh yeah, sorry, I'll zoom in as well, so then it's easier to read. So first we'll just do the what. So this, and I'll actually put this link in the chat so then folks can look at it on their own as well. Watch, it's gonna be like, you need to request access. Okay, anyways, so I'll just present it on here, and if you need access to it, just let me know. But the what, the first like bullet point just explains the what for the university. So this Universal Design Ad Hoc Committee, we focus on improving and demanding accessibility at USD. This will include, but is not limited to, on-campus events, off-campus events, virtual events, all classes, whether that's virtual or in person, old and new buildings, parking services, trams, and much more. Accessibility goes a very long way. And there's a lot that could be improved. So in this, if you aren't familiar with what universal design is, or like the phrase, I encourage y'all to look it up, but basically it's just like this design that is, I mean, universal is kind of like, it's not necessarily like it's going to, I guess, fit, it's gonna like be accessible to all is the ideal, like, I guess, notion of it. But yeah, so obviously there's some like maybe mix up with the term universal, but basically it does just promote access, an accessible environment. This is from the website National Disability Authority, so they kind of explain what universal design is in this second bullet point. I won't read it because it's kind of long, but I encourage y'all to read it, or even go to the website, and I'll actually put this link in the chat. I'm not like basing anything necessarily off of this website or this organization. I was more just wanting to give y'all like a definition of universal design, and to know that it has been not only a movement, but like an implementation when building new buildings and different things like that. And USD is somewhat familiar with this concept because they had a universal design committee for the Learning Commons and Camino and Founders while they were rebuilding. But now it's just kind of like I'm wanting it to, the concept, I guess, and the ideal environment to be extended to any and all departments on campus. And then I will go down to the who. So basically, who is like any senator and or University of San Diego student. I have it pretty open to like anyone, just because like I know that like, you know, we're not all experts on disability or accessibility, and it might be nice to get stories or ideas from other students. And maybe if y'all, you know, have suggestions of just making it like disability related organizations such as the DLDRC, Health and Wellness, ID&E or ADA, like it can be like, I guess, focus group. But I think for the majority, like I'm just kind of interested in seeing who, what people can bring to the table. So I don't know if it would be kind of like an interest form or like an application form, but I do want it to be somewhat intentional, or definitely intentional, in the folks that we choose to be on this committee. When it would be effective immediately or as soon as possible if this is passed. I know that we don't have that much time in the semester, but that doesn't mean we can't start this semester and just see what we can either plan for the intersession or spring, or just as long as we are at USD. And I was hoping that this committee could be, I guess, lasting at least until next spring, the end of next semester. And if I'm on ASG again, then I will definitely want this to be another committee next year. But yeah, I think it's a great committee. I've heard from Dr. Halter in the Health and Wellness Department that this has been a committee before with ASG and like the university specifically. So she would kind of like encourage me or, you know, supported me in doing this. Where it would be a part of the ASG, kind of like this, like I'm saying, this ad hoc committee or this subcommittee. And then the meetings will be virtual until further notice. Even if we do hybrid, I think it's safe to stick to virtual for the rest of the year. And then why? I think this is like the biggest and most important part of this committee. And this is the reasons that it is going to exist. And so I just put 3 bullets, but there's so much more that I could go into. The first one is access is a basic human right. And so that access to people, places, things, resources is very important to USD's population success and growth. Just for example, there was, and these are just examples. They can be major or minor. They can be, you know, like small or big, but I think they're all really important. But the only entrance to the one-stop office, the physical space, there was not a paddle and it wasn't accessible all the years it's been there. So I last year decided to email facilities and partner with the DLDRC and get them to have paddles. So fortunately, last semester they put in the paddles that go to like one stop in the bottom floor of the UCs. Just something like that. Like, you know, folks may not think about things like that, but I definitely do. And I know that some other folks do. So if someone had to access one stop and it wasn't accessible, that could either hinder them from financial aid, changing classes, going in person to get help. Like it really goes a long way. So I think it's, you know, it's nice that they implemented them, but there definitely needs to be more that's done. There's been a lack of priority to make the campus accessible, and this may just be my opinion, but I know that it's also supported by other students who have spoke with, whether that's in ADA or students that just come to me talking about accessibility. I have been, probably since the day I got to campus, and I'm really not trying to over exaggerate, it's just I think about accessibility like day in, day out and all the time. And so as soon as I got to campus, I noticed so many things that were inaccessible. And for my past 2 years here, I have been in direct contact with the Disability and Learning Difference Resource Center, the DLDRC, facilities, and other admin to get things to be accessible. And usually they either, you know, try to tell me that there's like financial burdens, so they're unable to basically implement the accommodation or the accessibility until further notice or until they get more money or funding. I've just gone through a lot of different circling conversations, I would say, to be transparent about the prioritization of accessibility. And this does extend not only to physical accessibility, but mental, developmental, emotional, intellectual accessibility, virtual accessibility. And that's my next point, is that there have been multiple, and like I want to stress multiple, not just from ADA, but I've gotten random emails from folks. I've gotten folks that on the petition that's going around for the pass-fail options, there's been folks basically saying their accommodations are not being met, and professors, staff, and faculty are actually like undermining their accommodations, undermining the ways in which they can do work. They're either not allowing for certain accommodations, or they're saying, oh, you don't actually need them, or oh, it's only going to take this long for a test, you don't really need extended time, or whatever it may be. As we may or may not know, we do not have ASL classes. We don't have ASL interpreters. We barely can get closed captioning on certain events that are virtual. And for students that read libs, maybe hard of hearing or deaf, it is definitely hard to access material if it's not accessible. And it goes beyond, there's so many different disabilities and abilities that could be more catered to. Have, for example, testing accommodations, even food accommodations, like that's very much needed. I could go into this, I think, like all day, and there's so many examples, but basically that this committee will help with the accessibility. It can help with the accessibility of ASG and getting closed captioning and seeing where we can put, put funding or whatever we need. Sorry, I guess, but it's definitely not limited to physical and visible disabilities. It goes a long way. It even goes towards mental health and just being a resource for that. So I just want to stress that this is, I think, just as important as it ever has been, maybe even more important being virtual, because things are getting bypassed or pushed under the rug because there's so much going on. And I totally get that, but these are people's daily lives that are being affected negatively. And there's been a good amount of students that have been considering or have taken medical leave because virtual online classes are not working for them, because there's not a focus on accessibility for virtual learning. So with that being said, if anyone has any questions, please let me know. I'm gonna make this a little smaller just so you can see like the whole thing. But like I said, it is in the chat and I will make it shareable to y'all. Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns? I can't see hands, but Maya will let me know. Speaker.
Before we get into the questions, can we get back to the slides so we can have some closed captioning? Thank you, Fantasy. Thank you, Chidi. Sabrina?
I just wanted to say thank you for taking the initiative to bring back a committee that had previously existed, because clearly we need it now more than ever. And I really appreciate the inclusivity and equity that you really seek to create. And I think it would be so necessary ASAP. So I just wanted to say thank you for your energy and time spent on this.
Sabrina, your hand's still raised. Do you have anything to add?
No, sorry.
No problem. Does anyone have any questions, comments? A motion, perhaps? Lauren?
I move to approve the creation of the Universal Design Ad Hoc Committee.
Second.
I second.
There's a motion on the floor having been seconded to approve the Universal Design Ad Hoc Committee. Is there any further discussion? Alana Ludman?
Thank you. I have a question about ad hoc committees timeline. I guess, are they temporary? Are they only for the semester? How long do they last?
So Sarah can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, ad hoc is as long as it's deemed as necessary. So it's not like a certain time stamp of or expiration date for how long it could last.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Maya, if I could chat real quick, just to add on to that. So usually ad hoc committees are created for a specific task, and they shouldn't be necessarily like an ongoing committee doing work. So I think we would just need to kind of understand what is the goal for the ad hoc committee, because once it's that is completed, then that would be the conclusion of the ad hoc committee.
Thank you, Amanda. Fantasy?
Thank you so much, Amanda. Honestly, y'all, I'm gonna be super 100% honest. I just put ad hoc because that's what like I thought it was supposed to be. Like, it's basically, I would love for this committee to be like somewhat permanent until disability justice is served, but you know, that's gonna be a long time. So I don't know if we would need to change the name or if we could create it to like have some type of lasting effect. And I don't know if I could just like have it for the rest of the semester and then maybe next year see how we can make it more permanent. But I've like shared some goals about like virtual like accommodations being met. But I guess there's so many. I think it's hard to find one specific one, but I think my intention is just to have like a committee focused on accessibility. So I honestly don't know how to go about it, but I'm open to whatever.
Alana Budman?
This is a question for the floor. Is it possible for a resolution to be drafted to start another committee or another anything that speaks to longevity of this?
Amanda, do you have an answer for that?
So I think in my mind, how I'm seeing this is it could potentially be an initiative that is focused on by the Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Committee, so that it is not without any boundaries or specific task that needs to be completed, but it could be an ongoing thing. And then through that work, different resolutions could be created to implement and to create the change for that universal design on our campus. Does that help clarify that?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, I don't know if I was supposed to say anything.
Fantasy?
Thank you, Amanda, for the clarification. Again, I think my intention, and I'm glad that you brought that up from the ID&E committee because I was thinking that it might be brought up, but I guess my intention with like, I know that the chair of the ID&E committee and some folks like know that I was wanting to do this or this committee in some way. I just kind of feel like they have a lot of things going on. I mean, I would be open to being like a subcommittee that's, you know, not necessarily like taken on by them, but they are giving space for folks to join or do that subcommittee. But I didn't want them to have to take it on with so many other things that are going on. And I think it's definitely something more like, I don't know, I guess definitely bigger than ASG, bigger than the school, but I did want to focus it through ASG. But like I said, I'm open to any options. We could, I mean, y'all could like table it and I can go, you know, talk with the ID&E chair about the subcommittee initiative. I don't really know how to go about it, but I'm assuming that people are on board, just trying to see where it needs to fit.
Lauren?
I move to amend the motion. Is that to table the discussion?
Second.
Correct.
Point of order, I don't think that's the proper motion because that's not, I mean, I don't remember the specific phrasing of the original one, but I don't think that's how the amendment works. You just simply move to table it, not amend it to table it.
Gotcha, sorry. I move to table this motion.
Second.
There is a motion on the floor, having been seconded to table the Universal Design Ad Hoc Committee. Is there any further discussion? Alana Bloodman?
I would love for it to be discussed and said explicitly when we would bring this back up. I don't want it to go unspoken.
Lauren, was your motion to table it indefinitely or was there a timeline?
Table it until next Senate. Maybe. If someone else has input, I would love to hear it.
Fantasy?
Thank you. I guess I'm just trying to clarify what the tabling, like what the contingency, if I'm saying that right, is to tabling it. Is it because I should go to the ID&E committee and have it be a subcommittee? Anyone have suggestions on like how to move forward? Because I feel like, I don't know, I guess I'm just trying to clarify what would y'all like for me to do?
Max?
Hello. So we have our ID&E committee meeting tomorrow, Fancy, and I think it would be great for you to attend that and hopefully discuss it a little bit more. And I think we would be tabling it in my idea to have more of a knowledge of where we want to place it.
Chidi?
Similar to what Max said, I do think this is like really important, and I definitely see the work being something long term. So just to table it to potentially have it be like a permanent subcommittee as a part of ID&E, just so the work can be independent and like ongoing even after you graduate.
Fantasy?
Sorry, my hand was already up, but yeah, thank you. I mean, that just clarifies, it helps. So I'm definitely down to do that. Thank you for the invitation to the meeting, and thanks for listening to this. I'm glad y'all support it. I'll just kind of have more of the definitive position for it next week.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor, having been seconded, to table this discussion until next Senate meeting. So we need to vote on that. So if there's no further discussion, please cast your votes. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is approval of new and re-registering clubs. Jay, the floor is yours. Jay, are you prepared to present today?
Yes, sorry. I was actually muted. I'm kind of like
Okay.
really annoyed at that, but it's okay. Thank you, Speaker of the Senate. Today, I'd like to present you all one club that has received approval from the Student Org Committee majority. The first club seeking approval is the Women in Business at USD. And their mission is to empower women in business to become confident in their industries and networking and create supportive environments with all genders being welcome. And their goals are to elevate and empower women in business, to welcome guest speakers and provide leadership examples. And after that, the final three clubs are the ones re-registering this year, as they need no further description from us. So now at this time, I would like to open to the Senate any questions they have towards the club, to the student board chair and committee members about the pre-approved club before the official Senate vote.
If no one has any questions, you can also make a motion to approve each one individually. We could go through the list, or we could approve all of them at once. Alana Bloodman?
Sorry, can you just go back to the previous slide? Thank you.
If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know.
AJ?
I move to approve the new student organizations.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor, having been seconded to approve the new student org. Is there any further discussion? Lauren?
I move to amend the motion to include the re-registration of the 3 previous orgs.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor, having been seconded to amend the motion to include re-registering orgs approval. So now we'll be voting on the amendment. Is there any further discussion? If not, please cast your votes on the amendment. Motion passes. Okay, so now we can vote on the actual motion. So there's a motion on the floor, having been seconded to approve the new student orgs and the re-registering orgs. Is there any further discussion? If not, please cast your votes. Motion passes. New student org and re-registering orgs have been approved. So that's it for new business, and that brings us to final business and hearing of the public. At this time, any senator may take from the table any motion previously on the table on the meeting the week before or present urgent business, and any member of the public may voice any concerns to the assembly on non-agenda items. Ari?
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Speaker. And all right, so my update is that I sent out an email earlier this week about just to senators that have yet to fill out their office hours. I went through some of them and I noticed some of them were just empty and some of them were blank. So please feel free to do that. I will send another email tomorrow. And I also got an email from Jeffrey Fox to put the office hours on the ASG page. So I'd made a Google Excel that I'm going to share with you guys in the link right now. And I put all your names, and then you just, I think Jeff suggested to use Calendarly, which I think we mentioned kind of earlier, to do that. That way, you know, constituents can go in, talk to you, and bring up your concerns. So if you guys can do that and make a Calendarly and just provide that link, that would be super helpful. I'm going to drop the link below right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Alana Bledman?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you. I have a question, which may sound very dumb, but it's okay. I'm gonna put myself out here. I would love someone to re-explain what office hours are and why we all have to have them. I was not under the impression that we all had office hours. I know that's probably bad to say out loud, but it's okay. I said it. So I would love someone to like re-explain the concept of what they are, how we just all of it. Sorry, all of it.
So Ari's in charge of the logistical aspect of the office hours, so I can let her speak to it as well. But the purpose of office hours, every senator has 6 office hours every week, and that's a time that's dedicated to working on ASG related things, initiatives, resolutions, etc., as well as being able, that's a time where your constituents know where to find you, because all of everyone's office hours will be posted online. So your constituents can go online to the ASG website, see, oh, I want to bring up this concern to Valley V Senator, and then they can jump in on the Zoom call that you'll be having during your office hours, and then they can share whatever they want to share with you as the representative. Ari, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to the logistical standpoint.
Yeah, so just going off with my, so that's essentially what it is just for them to, you know, for constituents to step in and have that conversation with you. And another note is that committee meetings and advisory meetings also count towards your office hours, which is awesome. so that way everyone can meet that 6-hour minimum. But the Calendarly, me personally, I'm still figuring out how to set up as well. But essentially, I think the way it works is that you input the times that you're available. And then I think you can link it with your Zoom meeting account. And then whatever time or whoever wants to come on in and meet with you, they'll do that. So I'm trying to share it right now, but my computer's been dumb. So yeah, I hope that.
I also want to add, if the ASGBC Senator members aren't aware, that also counts towards your office hours, just so Alexa and Ceci know. Lauren?
Didn't our chief of staff mention that they're trying to get funding for Calendly? Do we have to pay for it?
Yeah, so there has to be a subscription for Calendly, and for us to essentially have, let's say, X amount of senators on a certain, like, one account basically. And so what I have to do is request money to be able to pay for the subscription for each and every single senator who has or who would need Calendly. And it's a monthly recurrence. So it's just, I guess, I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly, but yeah, I have to submit some form of payment for subscription for every single person who would be using their own Calendly under our ASG sort of, like, I'll call it a team on Calendly, if that makes any sense.
Fantasy?
Hi, yeah, thank you. So from my understanding, the office hours log, it's a Senator OH log. So we have to log it each time. If I could suggest, and I guess just bring up that last year, we kind of just had like set times, like whether it was on our calendar or like on like the Excel sheet of when we had our office hours, instead of like reporting them like kind of somewhat randomly each week. Guess I'm just like curious why that was a shift. Is it more just being like flexible of not having consistent office hours, or like is there a way that we can just let y'all know like, hey, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like I'm here 2 to 3, or do we just log that in the Excel sheet?
So
you can take this one.
Awesome. So Fantasy, that's a great point. And you kind of just hit it on the or I think it's the analogy, but hit the nail on the hammer. But since this semester and the past, or half the past semester, was very different the way we did things, everyone's calendars look a lot different week to week, and we do have a lot of flexibility and a lot of changes in our calendars. And so to account for that, we thought it was great to implement this sort of senator office hours log, because a lot of us don't have a set amount of, like, not hours, but a set schedule every single week for which we can be there. And so considering that, we thought we still need a way to keep everyone accountable for this. And so this is a way to see our office hours, track our office hours every week. Again, in the event that we don't have a set schedule for our office hours from week to week. So this is just a way for us to kind of keep track of what we do in our office hours, as well as to make sure that we are keeping up with our 10 hour, sorry, not 10, but 6 for senators, 6 hours a week that were available for our constituents and doing work related to ASG.
Alana Bledman.
Thank you. I was just going to remind some senators that we do have the initiative fund that could potentially be used for the, what is that called? The subscription to the Calendly. So just if that is a possibility, I think that would be helpful for subscriptions.
Maya, can I have my hand? Did someone else have their hand up?
Not right now, no.
Is it okay if I speak?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'm listed as a co-host, so I can't raise my hand. Just to clarify, Isaiah put in the plans to put in a funding request through ASG under his account. He currently funds and works on the accounts for exec that have Calendly. So if you all would like to use and get Calendly now, Alana Bledman made a very great suggestion that that can be something that can be used requested under the Senate Initiatives Fund. If that does not happen, Isaiah will put in the requests and the funds for quarter 3 and 4 for you all to have this subscription. So no one has to pay for it on their own or individually. I just wanted to clarify that. So it's just a matter of deciding whether or not you want it now or put in the request for next semester. So just wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page, and hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you, Jen. I don't see any other hands raised, but I wanted to quickly say that the Grubhub credits will be put towards your account next week. So it's going to be like a retroactive thing. So after each Senate meeting, you'll get the credits. But you know, since you'll get the credits after this meeting, you could use it for next week's meeting and onwards like that. So could proxies and members of the public that are undergraduate students, if you would like to get those credits for being here today, you can send your email in the chat and we'll take note of that. Ari?
Yeah, thank you. I think another thing, I'm still learning how to use Calendly, I think that's how you say it, myself. So I know that you can do 15 minutes for free, I believe. I don't know, Jen, if you know about that. But I think you can do it for 15 minutes. So if you'd like, or I don't know if that works, or I'm not sure if we could just use Zoom links, but yeah, I'm still figuring out the logistics here. Just let me know. Thanks.
We've reached our allotted time for this agenda item. If anyone would like to extend the time with the motion, they could do so now.
Ari?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to learn.
Alana Bledman?
I move to extend final business time by 10 minutes.
Second.
There is a motion on the floor, having been seconded to extend final business and hearing the public by 10 minutes. Is there any further discussion? If not, please cast your votes. Motion passes. Ari, were you speaking?
Madam Speaker, point of personal privilege.
Taken well. Does anyone else have anything they would like to share with the public or with other senators? Fantasy?
Yeah, thank you. I would just, I guess, like to ask all senators or anyone who knows if we're going to be having a discussion or a follow-up from the USD Vista regarding articles that have been posted / meetings that have been made / if there's any resolution or solutions or next steps that the USD Vista is going to make from transparency to so many other things. But yeah, I'm just wondering if anyone has any information on that, or if there's any representative here from the Vista that could speak upon that.
Alana Bledman?
Yeah, so ASG and the Vista recently had a meeting, I believe last Thursday. The meeting lasted 2 hours. A lot of what I thought was productive back and forth. Definitely some tensions. A lot of the conversation was centered around asking the Vista for some sort of accountability, and our only material question that we asked for is whether or not they would be willing to post a public statement about racism being embedded in all of the foundations across campus, even in the Vista, and that they were going to make valiant efforts to try to undo, some of the institutional racism that's riddled in everything that's alive on this campus. We asked if they would be willing to share a statement. The editor-in-chief, Selena Tabor, responded on October 20th, 2 days ago, with a long email stating that first and foremost, no, they would not be posting any sort of apology or statement of racism in their foundations. Two, that if they were going to do so, they would do it on their own time and own accord. Other points, ASG, in my opinion, was painted to be very threatening and aggressive, which is interesting as the majority of the voices heard from ASG's perspective were Black women and a few other people of color. But all in all, we were told that the Vista would not be, that they would be following real world standards and will not be listening to any of the demands, quote, from governmental agencies such as ASG, apparently. So I have personally responded to Selena in an email in response to her email. That's all I'll say. So yeah, I have sent that. Unfortunately, it wasn't sent to all senators. It was only sent to those who attended the meeting and in response to those who she CC'd. So yeah, I don't see you on that thread. So it makes sense that you have some, sorry, not you, just kidding. But that's all, yeah.
Fantasy.
Thanks. Anyways, I'm glad that was shared with everyone. I'm just curious if that email can be made public, / if it could be sent to all of the senators or anyone who would like to request that. I don't know if that needs to be approved by the USD Vista representative herself, but I think, yeah, I would love that to be made public if possible.
Blendman.
I don't want to take up too much time, and I'm not sure if it would be the most effective method for me to share my screen and show the emails, but I would love for whoever wants it to drop an email. I will send it out right now, or I can share my screen. I don't know, just throwing some things out there. I do think that information should be public, as it called into question the respectability of all of ASG. So how can I share that information widely? I think I'm asking.
I think that you can share your screen if you would like to.
Will do. So this is the response from the editor-in-chief at the Vista. I'll give you all a second to read. I just realized it might have been easier if I read it out loud, but it's okay.
We reached our allotted time for this extension of the time. Can someone make a motion to extend it if they would like to?
Fantasy?
I move to extend the time by 20 minutes.
Sorry.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor having been seconded to extend the allotted time period for this discussion by 20 minutes. Is there any further discussion? If not, please cast your votes. Motion passes. Everyone can continue reading, but Fantasy.
Thank you. We did have someone from the public to comment. Should I wait?
You can go first.
Okay. Yeah, I thank you so much for sharing this. I think it's honestly could be a whole agenda item itself. I think this because it does have a lot of false and assuming and insinuating statements in there. I think it kind of upholds the way in which organizations have a lack of accountability, and this is like the model for like how other organizations on campus are going to respond to institutional racism, are going to respond to getting called in, are going to respond to if they are asked to acknowledge and condemn racism. It looks like it's not happening here. It's not being condemned. It's being justified. It's on their own time and their own accord, which I don't even think should be allowed. But a lot of this, I said, again, is my opinion. I would be more than happy to present this to our speaker next week to talk more about it, if that is a consensus of the senators or even of our constituents, if they want to hear more about the ways in which USD Vista responded to us. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Maite?
I actually don't have much else to share because I feel like much of what my sentiment was, Fantasy just said it. But it's a little bit confusing because they acknowledge that they're a racist institution, but the fact that because they feel pressure to do so, they don't want to acknowledge it, then it's just a little bit confusing. And I agree that I think it's could be a larger whole day conversation.
Thank you. Jay?
Yeah, I'd like to definitely agree with that statement as well. Just reading over it, at first I thought it was a communication misunderstanding. And then as I continued to read it, it looked like they were acknowledging the racism, but then flew behind the defense that they didn't want to be influenced by the government in ways that I didn't understand, because they could always word it in a way that they weren't pressured or they did it of their own volition. So I didn't understand that defense, or why it was necessary. Since we represent the student body, wouldn't it either way be the voices of the students that are heard on campus regardless? It just kind of, it felt a little confusing near the end, to where, sorry, to where I definitely saw like a lot of error in the message, but I also feel like there may have been a tone that was taken with them during the meeting or otherwise that was in a way misunderstood, or a little bit too heartfelt in emotions, I'll just say. So I can kind of understand both sides, but I don't like it in particular.
Thank you. Ari?
Yeah, I would just have to agree with all the previous senators before me. This email it's very, it just contradicts so much, and in a way is also very hypocritical. The fact that I mean, the wording of government and the fact that we in ASG represent the student body. I mean, that's what we do, is we advocate for. And the Vista not listening to the students of the campus, and the fact that just acknowledging that yes, USD is a racist institution, yet also going it also essentially saying like we'll do it on our own time and accord is really, it's really dangerous. And it's not taking accountability. And this is why a conversation needs to be continuous. It needs to be ongoing, because this email right here that everyone is reading is a perfect example as to why this needs to be ongoing. And don't worry, it will definitely be ongoing for a very, very long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. AJ?
Point of personal privilege.
Taken well. You don't have to raise your hand for point of privilege, by the way.
Thank you.
Sabrina?
I just had a question for anyone who attended the ASG meeting with the Vista. If the faculty advisors were present, because I am a communication studies major, I have learned about the fourth estate and what this email is referring to. And I just wonder what kind of guidance they're getting from the faculty and what the faculty is saying, if they're supporting this problematic rhetoric, because I understand what they're trying to say, but I think that they need, I want to know what the faculty thinks of it, who are also professors of this, and if they were present at that meeting, or if they can be present at if there is another meeting.
The advisors who were present at the meeting was ASG advisor Jen and the Vista advisor Gina.
Thank you.
Justin?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just to respond to that question, yes, it was Jen Lee Aller from our side and Gina, who is the advisor of the Vista that was there. And just sort of, I guess, as a comment that I invite everyone to keep in mind is that this is a crucial conversation that should definitely keep on. However, I think that when there's just one side of the perspective, we should be sort of vigilant of that. So while yes, we see the email and everything, I think that it would also be fair to bring in the perspective of the advisor, not just the ASG advisor, but also the Vista advisor, as well as the Vista themselves, so as that both sides can maybe communicate what happened in the meeting instead of looking at a printed document and sort of putting the pieces together from there. Because I do agree there is a forceful tone in that email and everything. However, it's sort of like looking at a puzzle without all the pieces. Just something to keep in mind.
Alana Bledman.
I hear the previous concerns. I would like to state that these are journalists who know exactly how to use words and how to convey certain messages. I know for a fact that everything that is posted through the Vista goes through the advisor as well. So to a previous senator stating about, sort of like guess and checking, yes, Gina Liu is an advisor for the Vista that looks at and looks over everything. In response to the question about perspectives, I would like to read my response to the email. Is that all right with you, Madam Senator? Speaker, apologies.
You may do so. Thank you, Alana.
So this is my email in response. This is coming from me and no one else. It goes, this email is as long as it is a stretch. You have a very cunning way with your words, Miss Editor. To include verbiage implying that the members of ASG, quote, told the Vista that you should publish an apology, unquote, is a falsehood. Multiple participants of the meeting who explicitly stated that they were speaking solely as students and not as their titles, asked if the Vista would be willing to make a public statement declaring that racism is embedded in all foundations and social structures, and that the members of the newspaper staff would take the necessary steps and make the correct adjustments, i.e. a more diverse staff, to try and undo their part in the institutional racism. To assume we demanded that you and your team apologize for the wrongs of the nation is outlandish, to say the least. Furthermore, even if ASG demands a public statement regarding the Vista's transition forward, is that a real risk to journalistic integrity you claim to purport? Participants of the meeting at no time gave you an ultimatum, Madam Editor, forcing you into a corner with a promise of a response being the only chance for escape. It's unfortunate that the pleas of students of color, specifically Black students, again, are misinterpreted and painted to be argumentative, forceful, and aggressive. Second to this, I am a Black student at USD who feels like other Black students that my perspectives are not being adequately reflected by a publication meant to represent all students. Of course, respected editor, it is understandable to not want to discuss the issues of institutional racism unless under your own accord, as the topicality can be difficult to cover and convey on a small town publication level, such as the Vista. However, I, like many other BIPOC, do not share the same rights and liberties put forth in the First Amendment. Before I am a part of a governing body, I am a Black woman. And as we can all recall, the freed slave clauses came much later to ensure my basic rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not only in an institution such as USD, but in this country. The Vista is not perfect, and despite your efforts, still needs to do much, much better. A public statement affirming your cause to anti-racism seemed a simple step to take. You said it best yourself, Editor-in-Chief Tabor. Institutional racism is embedded in every institution in this country, including the media. It is embedded in the most prestigious national newspapers as well as small town publications. It is embedded in the University of San Diego and the USD Vista. This statement is all it took. Instead, the oppressed majority are left with another email to our collection of empty sentiments of care and a promise of zero change. We walk away from this incident with yet another reminder that our demands for powerful institutions to change the status quo will always be shut down, and that our desperation for change will forever be seen as a threat. If the Vista is able to concede to the point that their publication is riddled with institutional racism, the next step ought to be in issuing corrections both inside and outside the meeting room. ASG suggests a more diverse writing room and a written statement promising better. Rather than accept or even modify our suggestions, the Vista refuses to take a single substantive step due to, quote, demands and pressure that ultimately compromises their idea of journalistic integrity. I would like to add, all journalism has bias. It is simply a question of whom that bias favors. Right now, it is favoring the right-leaning conservative white students at USD. Is correcting that bias so that the publications represent diverse opinions and thus create a safe space for BIPOC truly capable of compromising all credibility and accountability of the Vista like you state. You say you prioritize the well-being of your staff over all else. This is apparent and has been a consistent theme throughout the Vista's history. Never once has the Vista had any consideration of the emotional impact their actions have on students. The only concerns have always been about saving face and not compromising your newspaper's credibility, despite there being none. White is not an insult, as you would like to think. What is insulting is the consistency of the Vista's defiance to improve. What is an insult is the complete lack of recognition of the pain that the Vista continues to inflict upon students of color throughout the organization's practices. What is in fact embarrassing is hosting a 2-hour meeting asking how to do and be better, and then doing nothing about the 2 hours worth of responses on exactly how. The staff at the Vista needs to start from within. If journalistic integrity is a priority, members of the staff must educate themselves to prevent ignorance from pervading their pages. For a white middle upper class conservative to label themselves oppressed is desperately out of touch with not only the current political state, but the word itself. Journalistic credibility cannot be built on a foundation so ignorant. The USD Vista gets the choice of adopting real world practices, as freedom of the press is a basis for US democracy. What you and your staff refuse to understand is that the basis for US democracy is anti-Black and anti-Indigenous. These, quote, real world practices are inherently racist and aid in the suppression of minority voices. You mentioned that the Vista refuses to have government control over the media. You're conflating the Vista to a major news network facing censorship from a national government with much more power than a school's government. We are students here to learn. It's a false equivocation that I hoped we were all intelligent enough to make. This will be the legacy that you leave behind. You are responsible for the pain that has been felt campus-wide, and this is not over. Thank you.
Thank you, Alana. Chidi?
Yeah, just some points I wanted to add. Thank you to the previous senator for reading their response. Several times during that meeting, many of us made the explicit point that we were speaking as students, as Black students, as students of color, and not in our positions as ASG. And I guess even despite that being repeated and said multiple times, that wasn't acknowledged or seen as legitimate. Secondly, I do want to reiterate it was me that had this expressed interest to Amanda of setting up that meeting. And just as an update personally, I
refuse to engage with someone who finds the need to repeatedly misconstrue my words and paint me to be someone who supports violence. So I will not be engaging with any sort of discourse or conversation with the editor-in-chief with the Vistas unless it takes place in a recorded setting or if my advisor is present. So that's just, I will not be engaging with any sort of discussion that's not recorded and posted to the public. Those are just 2 points that I wanted to make.
Thank you, Chidi. That is completely valid. Jay?
Firstly, I have to get to class soon, but I just wanted to make a statement to Senator Alana, as I've never heard a more beautiful response in my life. And so, oh my gosh, that was one of the most amazing responses. I couldn't string that up if I had 4 years of practice. I was just listening to that in awe and amazement as a Black student myself, as somebody who looks up to people like Senator AOC and so many others. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for even sending that email. I don't even know if I would have had the confidence to do so, knowing that nothing would be done. But I really appreciate you. I appreciate Senator Chidi and everyone else who was there and present. I apologize for not being there. Now I kind of wish I was there just so I had a count of such a record like that. It's it's so unfortunate, and I do have to get to class, but I just wanted to really say thank you from the inner depths of my heart. I really felt that, and I appreciate you both very, very much. But I have to call a point of privilege here.
Taken well. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Chidi?
Point of personal privilege.
Taken well.
Point of personal privilege.
Taken well.
Point of personal privilege.
Taken well. Ari?
Yeah, I would have to agree with the previous senator's statements. That was a beautifully worded email. And I can just say I can commemorate you both for the work that you're doing and speaking out, and to, I 100% understand the situation of not wanting to engage, because I can't imagine just the emotional drainage that is, just that what that conversation was with the Vista. But yes, I just wanted to say that thank you so much for the work that you're doing and that you are continuously advocating. And that was a beautiful email. And yeah, thank you.
Point of order, we've reached below our quorum point, so the meeting will have to adjourn.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, so since we don't have quorum, like Sarah said, that means that the meeting automatically has to end. So that's it for today. I will stick around if anyone else wants to talk or has any other questions about the meeting. But yes, thank you all for being here today and for your engagement.